going to be talking with Anthony this morning is about the whole new concept and framework that I'm developing around potential. Often when I go and do a workshop, I'll ask the people to write down on a piece of paper on a scale of 0 to 100, how much of your potential are you using? And typically the numbers go between anything from 10%, 20%, 50%. And a few people say I'm using like 60 or 70 or 80% of their potential. And so my next question is, so if you have 100% potential and you're only using 10, 20, 30, 40% of your potential, why? What is it that blocks you from using your full potential? And what is it that constrains what your potential is? So then what we do is we play a song. I get everybody to stand up and I play something like Pharrell, that happy song, and we play about a minute or two of that. And then I say to them, so on a scale of 0 to 100, how much of your potential did you use right now to dance? Because dancing is something we all love to do. So how much of that potential did you use? Because it's a song that most people like, and being happy is a lovely space to be in. And once again, there's some people that stand at the back and they kind of slowly bob around. Others go crazy and have a really wild time. And for me, the fascination is we have what's possible, the maximum possibility of what somebody can in fact do, or somebody has been able to do. For example, somebody picking up, let's just say 1,000 pounds or 500 kilos. That's possible. There are people in the world that can pick up huge weights. Their body is physiologically designed that they can cope with that. But maybe you and me, our body doesn't have that capacity to pick up such huge weights. But if you really put us in the gym and we'll try, in what I call our pleasant present, in our comfort zone, we might be able to pick up 50, 60, 80, if you really push harder, maybe 100 kilos. And then people say, well, I'd like to do more. I'd like to be able to have more power, more potential. And so they go and get a coach. And a coach will teach you how to do certain things, but seldom is coaching really what I call expansive or activating. Because most coaching is, so where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's in the way? How do you get there? Let's break it down to steps. And that's the typical coaching models, whether it's the grow model or whatever the model you're using. But I'm playing with the whole possibility now of, so if you have your maximum possibility, 500 kilos, right now you're able to lift 100 kilos. How do we expand that potential and possibility even more? How do we stretch what's probable in your life? Think about your life. What have you in fact achieved in your life with the current potential you are using? And if you then were to really, really stretch, and I'm talking really stretch, like when you hear stories of mothers picking up the back of a car with one hand to pull their kid out. So she has it in her possibility, but in her day-to-day life, she's not using anywhere that full potential that she's got. So for me, the context is such an important component in using more of our potential, in fact, expanding our potential. But if we look around us in the workplace with such low levels of engagement, of happiness, of stress, of dysfunction, when I do my research, it's incredible to see the level of dissatisfaction and dysfunction in an organization. I recently did some work with the bank, and we have a scale on the wall from 0 to 10 on the current trust level in your team. And I was shocked to see it. The levels are down at like 0 and 1 and 2. And we were able through the day, able to start to shift that and understand some of those issues and some of the causes of that. But at the very end of it, the boss came and said, we had so many problems, we had no idea where to start. And in that kind of a context, your culture is very toxic, and everybody's in what I call a protective or defensive mode. We're blocking you because you're using all your energy for the political safety and security. You're not sure who you can trust or what you can do. So that foundation for a person to stand strong and fast isn't there. So for me, the probability of any organization today is probably 10-20% of their potential. So what do we have to do? How do we change that that potential? How do we, in fact, expand and stretch and activate more of that potential? And from the work that I've been doing, it has to start with the individual, within the mindset, within the identity of, this is who I am. Because even with a coach can take you to a point. They maybe take you to 120 or 30 or 50 or 180 kilos of your normal sort of comfort zone capacity. But how do we 2x your ability? What's going to change? I was talking to somebody the other day. I went for a massage. I had damaged my shoulder in fishing, and every time I used my shoulder, it was sore. And I thought, well, now I'm stiff, I need to do stretching. And so I tried to touch my toes, and I haven't been too focused with my exercise, but I wasn't able to get down to my toes for long. And this friend of mine was saying that when you're in the anesthetic on an operating theatre, your body completely goes limp, and your tendons stretch completely. They can put your legs almost like over your shoulders. So it's like you become a rag doll. All of those limitations that where you can and cannot move your body seem to go reset back to zero. But once you wake up, there's this realignment. Okay, this is how far I can stretch. This is how far I can go. But it seems to be linked to consciousness and an identity in that consciousness. So if we're going to up our potential and start to achieve maximum possibility, it can't be somebody saying, try harder. It can't be somebody saying, well, think like this. It has to be a complete re-engineering of, this is who I am. I have a new friend recently. She's very religious. I'm spiritually oriented. And I was fascinated to see how the belief system that this person has can actually create a constraint in the possibility of what they can think about in the world. And so for the work that I'm constantly doing is stretching that consciousness, that identity of who I am, and the meaning and the impact of why we're on this planet and what we're here to do. The challenge that we have is now we have to wrap meaning and around money and business. And we know that money is not a motivator, unless you've got no money, then it is. But if you have money, it's not an ongoing motivator. So what is it in your life? I'm just looking at the guys that have joined. On a scale of 0 to 100, how much of your daily potential are you using? If I have to think about my typical day and how I'm showing up, I feel like I'm the guy in the circus with those plates, where you're juggling the plates. The problem is there are some important plates that I'm looking after, and maybe sometimes as they slow down they start to wobble, and there's some unimportant plates that I'm also still trying to keep going together. And I think part of the challenge is being disciplined enough to say, this plate is important, I'm going to focus on it, and this plate is in fact is a waste of time. But I think I have 2 screens on my desktop, and at any given time, I had to close down a whole lot now, but I probably have 20 windows open on my 2 screens. And I have observed, because I have my little sand timer. This is my fierce focus friend. So what I'm doing nowadays is I'm literally putting this down in front of me, and I have to focus on one subject. No extra pages, no extra screens, no distractions. And I'm focusing using that to keep me disciplined and focus on one process at a time. Because it's very easy with the internet, and my brain is I go along and I think, oh yeah, wow, that's interesting. And then I click here and wow, that's interesting. And the next thing, I've got 20, I'm reading a study from IBM here. I've got some other Go culture, wisdom and research. If I look at all of the stuff, there's so much interesting stuff. The problem is that the distraction, the interesting stuff will keep us in our comfort zone. And I know from Brenda, from my time and staying with Brenda and them, she's an incredible photographer. And when I watched in the beginning, because I used to do photography in the Navy too, and I watched with her fierce focus how she created some incredible photographs. And I almost felt jealous, because eventually I went and bought myself a nice one of the new Canon cameras, because it brought back the memories of what it's like, that feeling when you are absolutely in the groove and doing what you love and doing it well, and you're starting to get right up to that full potential. But even when you think you're at that fullest potential, I promise you, the limitation in the belief system and the identity of who I am is such a constraint. And I was reading some research. I filled in a questionnaire last night, and they said one of your biggest, because of my birth date and whatever the platform they used to do the assessment, they said one of your biggest issues is fear of success. And like many of us, I think I saw Marnie and a few others here. Marnie, how's it, Marnie? Many of us in the self-development, in the business development environment, we think we don't have constraints, and we might just say, nah, and we'll push aside. But I started to think, so what is it about my mental makeup? What is it about this fear of success that is the constraint? But it was fascinating to see, as hard as we push, whether you're standing on a stage and getting on a stage and stepping up, or whether you're in your little business, those invisible constraints, they're not actually in the real world. They're not in the context. They may be. There are workplaces that are toxic as heck. I've been into workplaces where the boss throws stuff and the women are ducking and they're crying, and that's part of the day. And I think that's a toxic place, and you'll never use your full potential there. But where you have conscious leaders that are creating an engaging, a positive, safe place where people connect and communicate and collaborate, and there are not many of those, I can tell you from my research in the work that we've done. Even in the big companies, like where we've done some work, the tests show that the trust and the context and the culture is not an ideal space. So for me, the first level is the individual, the consciousness, the awareness. What is the self-talk like? When I was younger and I played hockey, I strived to do really, really well. And I think I did okay. I played for the Defence Force. I played for Southern Transvaal. I played for Western Province. So I did okay. I played for South Africa around the world. But my inner landscape, that inner voice, if I missed the ball or didn't make a nice pass, it was disgusting. If I spoke to you like I spoke to me, you could have me locked away. You wasted effing white skin, and you're stupid and you're useless. And I think many of us, and I think very often women carry a larger proportion of that, is we have this negative self-talk that for most of us we're unconscious. And yes, it's that little voice that says, who, me? I don't have a voice. We do. And so that's the very first war that you have to win inside, is that self-talk, that undermining. Are you sure? Are you certain? And I hope I can make the kind of comments I'm going to. I'm just looking to see who's online and how hard I can bend your fuse. In my spiritual growth, I asked for my growth to be accelerated. And I lived with a woman for 5.5 years who had 9 personalities, and she had demonic and non-demonic attachments on the personalities. All right, I'm going to stretch it just a little. And the fascination for me was that you can have a core consciousness of the identity of the soul that comes in, but then through fragmentation, through trauma, through challenges with alcohol, drugs, operation, invitation, you can actually get infected and affected by another kind of energy. And that can be dark energy, or what they call DFE, dark force energy, or not very friendly energy. But I worked with a psychologist, Sue Mullen, who did a PhD on dissociated identity disorder, or DID, or multiplicity. So I worked with her. And it was fascinating to watch and observe from the outside how powerful its inner self-talk is, and how destructive it can be. And in my research, probably 25 to 30% of people have really destructive inner self-talk. They may smile on the outside. We have this lovely mask. We're smiling on the outside. But inside, the identity is not one of that I'm wonderful and kind and great. I worked with a woman in a workshop. If you're part of the Catholic Church, the fundamental kind of perspective and frame is you're a sinner from the time that you're born. I don't think that people really understand the kind of impact that identity has on people. And it was incredible to try and work with her, and it took probably a day for me to be able to get to a point of renegotiating that label and that identity. And I can't remember where I read it, but I read that in the old days where sinner comes from, when the archers were aiming at and they missed the bullseye, they said, you sinned, you missed the mark. But in today's context, we seem to have put such a hectic label on the sin. And I think all of us, we're doing the best we can with what we've got in the context and the space and the time and the energy and the consciousness that we have. And we can do better. It's not that it's genetically encoded in our genes. We know from the work of Bruce Lipton that your biological system, in fact, reacts to the context. So people say, no, this is just how I am. That's a belief system and an identity. But it's not. With enough consciousness and awareness, our system will respond and react to an external environment plus our inner consciousness and awareness. And with that is what I talk about activation, is we start to take you from your pleasant present comfort zone, which is that what I don't wear ties. You know, you won't often see me wearing ties. I'm sure in a past life I must have got hung or something. But I know when I'm speaking, I can feel, I watch the video and I can see that I have some issue around my neck. But if we can get out of that comfort zone, because the growth zone is outside of your comfort zone. And in the shifts and the constraints and the way the world is changing with artificial intelligence, we have to become more conscious. We have to become more aware. We have to communicate and collaborate far more effectively. And I see it in the workplaces. When I go in, I get a sense of the dynamic and the culture, and you can hear it in the stories from the people and see it in their energy. And once there's a shift, it completely transforms the culture, the dynamic, the context. We were in Zimbabwe recently for a very large telecommunication company. And we did just their management team, their 38 managers. And so I have my high performance framework, the ClearX framework that I've developed. And so I've sent in the questions. But the environment was so toxic, they wouldn't even fill in their name, their department, and their manager. We did it with the entire organization. So we got 90-something forms back from the lower levels, which I then consolidated and data visualized for the managers. And it was incredible to start to see, because that's my X-ray machine in. People aren't going to tell you the truth normally from a management level. They don't truly know what's happening in the mindsets of everybody. So we got a first level look into the system. And it was amazing to be able to show and reflect back to the managers to say, you may not be aware and you may not be intending to do it, but this is the kind of toxicity that you've created in the organization. You're running on fear, you're running on certainty, you're running on unfairness. And if Marnie's there, when we did all of the brain stuff, you know, the David Rock work, the moment you hit that unfairness button, everything shifts inside an organization, in the person. Motivation gets destroyed, engagement gets destroyed, and they go back to the safety zone, the comfort zone. Before I was doing the ClearX stuff a while ago, I used to ask in a workshop, on a scale of 0 to 100, how much of your energy are you using for self-preservation each day? And I was astounded, because it averaged out at about 70 to 80% of the people's energies just for preservation in the political space. And when you hear about people leaving the political space, it's like, no, I don't want to be there. I'm out. Because it's such a dog-eat-dog space. So how do we change the workplace? How do we change the impact? Because for me, there are 4 levels: people, teams, leadership, and culture. Those are the 4. PTLC are the 4 impact levels on the revolutionary workplace system. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to people. People, planet, and profit are the focus. But are we conscious enough with our people? Do we care enough about our people? One of the clients I worked with, they're an accounting firm. And in my pre-event interview, the lady said to me, please don't use that word. And I thought, I didn't swear. Am I that unconscious? And she said, you may not use the word love because you'll lose all respect of my directors. And I thought, wow, is that the kind of toxic space that we work in, that we live in? And I then interviewed every one of them before the event. And I opened up the session and I said, good morning, I'm really excited. I'm in front of one of the most intelligent groups I've been in front of for a long time on an IQ basis. But on an EQ basis, I think you guys are at the back of the queue. And there was a big shock in the room. And these were the directors of a very large accounting firm. And at the very end, the boss came in and said, you know what, you're right, we've lost our soul. Because all that matters for us is money. And I understand that in the corporate, in the world of accounting, there's a lot more responsibility, and it's not that fluffy, soft and easy space, because there's high accountabilities and it's around money. But for me, we've got to bring soul back into business. We've got to bring happiness back into business. We've got to bring it together. For me, the core process is getting black and white, pink, green and yellow to dance together. Because if we don't stand united, divided, we are going to fall. And in a war, nobody wins. And I'm sure many of the guys watching and listening today is most workplaces are war zones. We don't acknowledge it, and we don't allow it to squeeze out. But when I see the trust levels at 0 and 1 out of 10, and then I see we have an energy scale, if you know David Hawkins' power versus force. So we have a scale from love, joy, peace, down to blame, pain, shame, hurt. I'm astounded to see how low the levels are on a daily basis where people live. I've had people come to me after a half-day session in the Drakensberg one day. We did a half-day process, and the one guy came and said, I've been in therapy for 10 years for depression, and today's one of the best days of my life. We did some work for the public protector, and the lady came at the end of it. She said, my brother died. He committed suicide 4 years ago. And she said, today's the first day I've been able to let that go and come back and actually feel human again. As much as I'm a techie, I'm a computer COBOL RPG techie. I build machines, install software. My brother's a hyper techie. But I prefer hacking human software, the heart and the mind and consciousness, because that's for me, that's where the power is in this whole intelligence process. Is we know we can build IQ, we know we can build EQ. So the building block for me of the puzzle is human consciousness, human awareness, to get out of this pleasant present safety zone and stretch out and be the one that says, let's try again, let's do again, let's go beyond the probability of our workplace with the conflict and the racism and the fighting and the backstabbing that we have. Yes, coaches will get us to the next level, but we have to change belief systems of what's permissible in our head. We did work with one of a big mining house. We drove for half day to a place called Hotterzel, and we set up the room. Took us sort of 2-3 hours to set up the room the day before, and the next morning we couldn't start. And I said, okay, what's the problem? And so we had the NUMSA, the black union, and Solidarity, the white union, and they wouldn't even go in the room together to start. And so the HR guy that engaged us, he was pulling his hair out, and eventually I sat down with him, we negotiated through the process, and we did the 2 days. And it was an incredible 2 days. And at the end of every workshop, we do a closing circle. How are you feeling? What was most valuable for you? And future pace, how will this affect your workplace going forward? And the white Solidarity guy stood up. He said, and I remember his name, and my memory's not good as I get older. He said, my name's Alan Sutherland. I'm the head of the Solidarity Union. He says, I don't care if you're from a union, in a union or not. If you come to me, I pledge and promise that I'll do my best and find a way to help you. And the HR guy was like, wow.
And he will make a difference in the workplace for you people. And when you people are happy, it will make a difference to me, and I'll get happy. And what I've learned is we've all got the same concerns. And it doesn't matter if we're management, NUM, Solidarity. We've got all the same concerns. And why we're standing here is because we are actually leading other people. They've asked us to be here. So if we are strong, we'll make them strong. So we must just be strong enough to stand together. And what's good for the company, for business, it's good for us too. So we go with that attitude. And Alan Chandler says, we are positive, we'll make a difference. We will make a difference. And I'm going to put my softie, bear, whatever, it's going to be on my table. And people are going to ask me what's it there for. I'm going to tell them. And then again, management, thank you very much for arranging this. I have seen different people. I know them better. I've I've known peace for a long time, but I see another part of peace. And we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And then the black dude stood up, an old wise guy, and he stood there and he was very pensive. And then he looked around at the room and he said, I have to tell you, I've discovered I've been fighting a war that doesn't exist anymore. And that for me was profound, because if you come to the game believing it's a war, you will then put out that energy. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so in this workshop, I designed a game with a little cardboard, smaller than this, a little piece with 2 holes in it, a piece of wood, and I put cotton on it, 3 pieces of cotton. And I put 3 pieces on, and we drew a little box on the table with tape. And so there were 2 teams, 3 on that side and 3 on this side. So you each held a piece of cotton, and I used cotton so that you can't just pull. You had to think about how hard you can pull. So it was, in a sense, it was a game of tug and war. But if you come with the mindset of tug and war, you're then going to be pulling, and if both people pull, you're going to snap. And I front-loaded. I said, you win this by moving the block over this line. And there were some people that got it right away. It's, we'll let go and we'll dance with you so you can pull it over your line. And then we're trusting you enough to that you'll let go and allow us to pull it over our line. And then we can both win, and it's win-win. I was astounded to see how many, there were people on some teams that they wouldn't even pull it. They were saying, no, you pull, you pull, you pull. There was the levels of distrust were so profound and so deeply embedded. And it brings to mind a story. I was part of a men's group called Mankind Project. We do healing work for men. And we've done incredible stuff, weekends away, fire, initiations, sitting naked, talking. And so you've gone through an incredible process with a range of men of different cultures and colors. And you bond incredibly at an incredible level. And even in that, one of my black brothers said, you don't understand the distrust is so deeply embedded in my cells, I don't think I'll ever be able to trust you. And I felt sad, because together we have all the resources to make an incredible country, an incredible place, an incredible organization. When I go in, when we've had the shifts, we can create an incredibly kind, caring, positive, compassionate action organization. But until we actually start to create that move, and that's what I really respected the guys in the Zimbabwe at the very end, the boss, when I did the assessments and I was doing a pre-event interview, the lady running the business is an accountant, all head, no heart. I'm sorry guys if you're accountants or lawyers, but the left brain people, neurons that fire together, wire together. And so it becomes numbers rather than hearts and souls and feeling and the soft mushy stuff. And they were losing staff like 25% a year. And that's hectic in trying to maintain a positive culture. And when in my pre-event interview, they said, it's fine. We're running, we're making a profit, we're making good. They do $38 million US dollars a year sales. And they make serious money. And I was saying, if you just adjusted your mindset from a use and abuse to fair remuneration, fair rewarding, you could change the game. And at the very end, we have a process. I can't find one of my cards. At the very end, we do a rave process. I respect, appreciate, value, and embrace you for something specific. And at the very end, the boss came along and he said, I've never felt so good. And everybody does this rave at the very end. So every person raves every other person in the workshop, in the room. And at the end, the boss came and said, I've never felt so good in my life. I want my entire organization to go through this process. So we're go back to Zim. Think about your pleasant present, the constraint, the circumstances that you're in right now. On a scale of 0 to 100, how much of your potential are you using in this comfort zone? And are you willing? Are you ready? Are you able? Are you committed? Do you care enough for your future to step up and really, I'm asking you to really, I'm challenging you, not to 20% or 30%, but I'm asking you to 10x your identity of who you are and what you bring to humanity. I know if Brenda's still online, her and her hubby, they're beautiful Christian people. I'm a spiritual person, so for me, there's one life source, there's one God, there's one unity, there's one for everything, and we live in the soup of love. So for me, you are an extension of the most powerful force, life of God in the universe. So we're dancing with pieces of God around us, and with that, we have unlimited potential. But what is it that's been blocking you and stopping you from using that potential? So I have a process, what I call my gladiator activation process, which I discovered from a workshop I did with a guy, Peter Heilblom, doing Alpha Mind Power, is choose something that you could do, would do, should do. If you did do, would transform your life and your potential to go to your fullest possibility of what you're able to achieve. If you want to play with me, you can write something down on a piece of paper now. Something you could do, would do, should do, could do. If you did do, would change your life. Something for me right now maybe is just getting more focused and getting my weight back to a healthy 90-something, under the 95s, which means I need to do about 10 kilos. So write something down of that, what it would look like and the evidence of what it would be to do this amazing thing. Secondly, choose somebody that is disciplined and cares for you enough that they'll hold you hard. They'll hold your feet to the fire. They'll hold you fully accountable to perform as you promise. So that's what we call your SEAL, your Success Insurance Activation Leader. So it's like the SEALs in the military. They're strong, they're fierce, they're focused, they hold and make sure the mission happens. The third thing is choose an asset that you may have, something that you own free and clear, an engagement ring, a car, a house, a boat, plane, train, money or something, and pledge it to your SEAL. And it goes like this: I'm giving this to you based on non-performance. If I do not perform and achieve my goal by date XYZ, I will then give you my asset. So for me, I know. Are you serious about success? Step up. When I did this process, I hadn't spoken to my family for 8 years. We'd had a feud for 8 years. And so what happened is I had a mobile disco was my most valuable asset, probably 180, 200,000 rands worth of equipment and music. And so I pledged with my partner by Friday, 12 o'clock, I will talk to my folks, which I hadn't done for 8 years, not a word. If you'd put a gun to my head, I would have taken the bullet. I couldn't. I could not speak to them. Emotionally, energetically, I couldn't. And I didn't for 8 years. And so I made the promise by Friday, 12 o'clock, I will speak to my parents, or my SEAL buddy, my accountability buddy gets my disco. And for me that was like, whoa! The bigger the consequence, the more certainly you will achieve and stay focused in delivering your goal. Friday, 5 to 12, I still hadn't spoken to my parents. But the pressure to perform based on this accountability was so huge, which I'm grateful for. And so like literally 3 minutes to 12, I dialed and I put down the phone, and eventually I had to. I dialed and my father answered, and I ended up speaking to them and rebuilding the relationship again. But if I hadn't had that really serious accountability, I never would have done it. Today I still wouldn't have spoken to my parents. So if you care for yourself enough, choose something big, something wow, something amazing, something that you may not even believe is possible for you. A stretch, an incredible stretch. Get somebody that loves you, that will hold you to the fire, that will hold you with love and care to do it, to do what it takes. Because if we don't have this fierce focus, if we don't have this thing, I use this because if you see the sand running, that's your life. What are you doing with your life? We get so stuck in habit, so stuck in our comfort zones. You're going to wake up one day and it's going to be, really? Has this been my life? And I recently turned 61. And the love of my life and I are no longer together. And I'd understood we'd be till death do we part. And so it's like really forced me to rethink, so what is my life about? What is my legacy going to be? Yeah, so I've had fun and ups and downs and challenges, but what do I want the next phase of my life to be? Do I want it to be limited in a pleasant present? Sorry, I just need to have. I made myself a bit of a smoothie this morning. Got to get that weight component is working. So, what do I want the rest of my life to be? Between 60 and 100. Do I want the probability to exist? Do I want to stretch and bring more freedom and love, abundance, meaning, peace, and joy? And how am I going to do that? Unfortunately, I have two friends in my life that are honest enough that will come and say, you're not walking your talk. What's happening here? You've made this promise. What's happening? And so to have an honest mirror in your life, I think is a very important component. You have potential and you're not using it. As a team, those people have potential that they're not using. And it's my mission and Life Masters process to stretch that potential and activate that potential. And I challenge you to go out into the world. I've seen some people here that have joined. I haven't seen other people that have joined. My challenge for you is to go out into the world and with love and care and consciousness and kindness, fully use your potential. Stretch beyond the judgments and the finger pointing, the blaming and shaming that society and the normal cultures will bring. We need light bringers. We need anchor points. We need the people that are those lighthouses in the dark. We need those that will stand up in the storm and dance in the storm if we're going to create a better, brighter future for our country, for our people, teams and leadership. And now I think I was listening to this morning, now South Africa won. When the rugby started, I thought, we're in for a lashing. But we pulled it together. And for me, we need to do the same for our country, for our companies. Is we need to pull it together. Not another separate stuff that we've been pushing through. Because together, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are a hell of a lot stronger than apart. And I like Itzhak Adizes, he talks the difference between a blessing, a blessing, that's a blessing. Are we different and together? Or a curse? When you put your hand in front of somebody in the Middle East, that's a curse. And he says the difference between a blessing and a curse is only about half an inch. And so, do we bring blessings to our workplace? Do we bring blessings to our family? And the way we bring bigger, better blessings is to push beyond that limit, to re-engineer identity of who I am. Am I a physical being am I a human being having a spiritual experience? Am I a spiritual being having a physical experience? Depends on the limitation and the belief system, the constraint that you have on your beliefs, values and identity. So we'll see if we can get our technology together. But for all the guys that have joined me today, bless you, and I challenge you today to go and pay it forward. When we had the radio station, we used to have a random act of kindness. And just in 1994, with my Power of Now show in 94, before Eckhart Tolle, I'm sure Eckhart Tolle listened to my show. Just go and do some random act of kindness for somebody, just because you can. And you'll get an incredible burst of the chemicals that bring value and benefit to our bodies. Bring love. Choose love. We are the ones. We are the conscious ones. We are the ones that the way showers and the light bringers. And so my challenge for you is to go and let your light shine fully and shine bright. And I thank you for your time, and I bless you, and I look forward to dancing with you guys somewhere, sometime, somehow. If you can take us into organizations, we're very easy to work with. The answer is yes, as long as it's fair and win-win, and it brings some positivity to the game. That's what we're here to do. So thank you. Go and have an incredible day. How's it, Jax? I see my friend Jackie just joined. Have an incredible day. I challenge you to 10x your potential. Let me know. Chat with me. And we'll do this again, this random act of kindness again sometime. See you around. Bye guys. Bless you all.